everybody. Welcome to Soul Speak. My name is Talya Prado. I'm an editor, I'm a life coach and a mentor, and I've created this program, Soul Speak, to invite inspiring guests and world leaders who deal in healing, in education, in all of those areas that can help to uplift and evolve and inspire us. So it is my great pleasure today to welcome Dr. Shauli Mukherjee from all the way from India. So this is maybe I think the furthest I've Zoomed, I've had a video conference with, and it's evening for you now, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct? So I'm early morning and you're evening. And Dr. Mukherjee Shauli is the director at Adamas University in India. She's a passionate academician, a global thought leader, and internationally acclaimed inspirational speaker with more than 23 years of expertise in the education space. Quite an innovator. She has been awarded as India's top 50 women leaders in education industry and top 20 revolutionary edu leaders, as well as among 99 women achievers of India for the year 2021. You are currently the director of the School of Education at Adamas University in India, and I believe you founded that school, if I'm not mistaken, that I remember from our speaking, or it was the STEM school in West Bengal. That was the first STEM world school in the region. So that's a lot. That's a huge mouthful and an incredible amount of achievement and inspirational influence that you've brought and change that I can imagine that you've brought to your communities, to the region that you live in, and you continue to inspire because you travel around the world and you guest speak at all kinds of different world conferences. So you're spreading that knowledge and wisdom and innovation to everybody everywhere. We're so fortunate that we have this ability to, to share across the world so easily. So really the world benefits, I think, from what you can bring to it. So that was a lot. that was a lot to say. And I want to give you the opportunity to maybe tell our audience how you even began. How did all of this world of Dr. Shauli begin for you in education?
Thank you so much, Talia. That was such a warm and that was such a wonderful introduction. So, first of all, I would really like to thank you for inviting me on this platform and to share my insights with a lot of people who I presume would be getting a lot of value out of our mutual conversation and discussion today. So, well, yes, it has been more than 23 years that I have been associated with the education sector, being the principal as well as the founder principal of some of the reputed international schools in West Bengal, India, some of which had been founded and established by me. Yes, I would definitely like to name Adamas World School and STEM World School. Now, why STEM World School? Because that happens to be the first STEM school in West Bengal, India, which was eventually awarded for being the second best international day school in the entire West Bengal region of
Wow.
India by Education World in 2016.
That's amazing. And if
Well,
can I just interject and just ask you to explain to the audience who may not be familiar with STEM exactly what identifies STEM, what makes it unique, or what are the qualities of a STEM school?
sure. So, Talia, the first thing that I would like to mention about a STEM school is that a lot of people have misconceptions about what STEM stands for. So, we all know that etymologically, STEM stands for S for science, T for technology, E for engineering, and M for mathematics. So, these are the four disciplines. So, we all know that, right? So, a STEM school is not a school which mainly focuses only on these four disciplines. That's not what a STEM school is all about.
Okay.
Now, this is a general misconception among people. They feel that maybe it's a kind of a school which only focuses on these four disciplines or maybe highlights only these four disciplines, which is not correct. A
Okay.
STEM school can be best defined as a STEAM school now with an addition of the letter A. And the letter A stands for Arts and Humanities. So
Okay.
it means that the STEM disciplines or the STEM subjects will not have any value unless it is correlated and
Mm,
interconnected with arts and humanities. So it is an interdisciplinary approach and definitely a revolutionary concept because we are all used to having concepts in education where almost everything is segregated and
yes,
compartmentalized.
that's right.
So this is science, this is technology, this
Hmm.
is arts, and this is humanities. So a STEAM school will bring all these disciplines together and will have a very, very focused and a very, very systematic approach of teaching and learning, where since childhood, a child will learn that all these disciplines are interconnected with each other.
Right.
You see? Because this is exactly how learning happens. So, if we just go into a little depth of how learning happens in a child or even in an adult, so it never happens in a compartmentalized manner.
Right.
So, it happens in a very, very comprehensive and in an integrated fashion. Now, you may ask me this question, Talia, that if that is how learning happens, so why is it that all the schools in the world, almost all the schools in the world, they
Yes.
have periods, like, I mean, this period of 1 hour or 45 minutes is reserved for English. The next period is reserved for geography. So, why teaching is being done in this manner? So, I mean, this is not a way in which teaching should be done because learning does not happen like that.
Right.
So there is not a bell which rings here somewhere that, well, this particular time is reserved for geography or this particular time is reserved for maths learning. That's not how learning happens. So STEM brings all the disciplines together. Additionally, I would also like to mention that it's a kind of an approach which focuses a lot on a child's critical thinking abilities, a child's creative intelligence, a child's ability to solve problems, a child's ability to take decisions and look at multiple things from divergent perspectives. So that's what a truly STEM school will aim for. So that's what a STEM school is all about.
And it makes sense that you absolutely have to revolutionize even the structure of the day because you have to incorporate all of those elements. And so when you started teaching in, and it's not to invalidate, I guess, the system as it has been, as it has served all these years, but it's just to recognize that it is imposed on the learning, where is instead of the learning inspiring the methods of learning for the children, inspiring the teaching. So have you found it difficult to be able to bring this new approach to the schools? To, I mean, if in founding your own you can declare this is how we're teaching, but what has been the response for you from your communities, from parents?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question. In fact, let me tell you, Talia, that whenever you try to bring about something which is revolutionary, something which is out of the ordinary, something which is a sort of out of the box concept, and if that happens to be in the field of education, well, you must be prepared for a lot of setbacks and challenges and obstacles in your way. It cannot be a bed of roses for you because you are
Mm,
trying to think much ahead of your times. You are trying to challenge the status quo. You are trying to question, I mean, you are trying to ask all those difficult questions which we are more accustomed to brush around the carpet, you see.
yes.
So, well, there had been a lot of challenges, a lot of stumbling blocks, a lot of oppositions. And well, you will be surprised to know that uh, most of the oppositions actually came from the parent community. So when I was trying to
Yes.
introduce this new concept of education, something that is like, uh, and it is not like, something which is I'm trying to explain, and it's so wonderful to know and so wonderful to hear. It's not something like that. It's totally based on science. This is how learning
Yes.
happens. This is how learning should happen. So this was absolutely scientifically backed up. In spite of that, I had received tremendous opposition from the parent community, and surprisingly, from the teachers also. The
Mm,
teachers who had been working in the system for so long. You see,
yes.
so initially I thought, well, the opposition would be coming from the parent community. Well, that is something which I can expect. But then coming from the teachers, coming from the educators
Mm,
who are, expected to lead the change. And in fact, if they are the ones who are resisting the change, I mean, it's a sorry state of affair. But then it also took some time for me to realize the fact that, well, your degrees, your qualifications, and your, academic credentials, they are not sufficient or enough to qualify you as a teacher in the true sense of the term.
mm,
So sometimes, and often it happens, Talia, that you come with loads of degrees and certifications and years of experience as baggage, as
yes. Yeah.
baggage. And it's so difficult for you to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn. So
Absolutely.
learning, unlearning, and relearning, something that should be the hallmark for all the educators of 21st century. But that is something which is very, very difficult. It's so difficult for people to come out of their comfort zone and to try out new things, precisely because, in order to do that, in order to make that happen, the first work that you have to do is on yourself, you see.
Yes.
And it's so difficult to work on yourself because we all are so comfortable, and we all are accustomed to thinking that, well, whatever we are doing just fine, and that is maybe perhaps the way things should be done.
Mm,
So this is a kind of a jolt, this is a kind of a push to you. It's
yes.
a kind of a trigger which makes you think, which makes you self reflect, which makes you introspect, that what I have been doing for so many years, have I done the right thing?
Mm.
And it's so difficult to come in terms with such difficult questions.
Oh, absolutely. And everything that you've just said relates even so closely to the area of work that I'm in terms of personal development, right? I mean, that is what makes it so hard to embark on the healing journey, because you do have to reflect, you have to examine yourself, and then face the question of, have I been doing things in a way that or has been harmful to myself or others, or could be done differently for everyone's benefit and my own benefit. And it's very, the ego doesn't like to acknowledge that things might not be right the way we're doing them. And so you're right, it is stepping out of that comfort zone, it is facing that. The importance, I think, is maybe to take the judgment out of it also, and not that everything you've been doing is bad, but the way you've been doing things can change in order to maximize and enhance the benefits in learning, right? Or in healing, so once we can remove the judgment out of it. But that's hard too, because people are always so self-critical of ourselves and each other. So it is quite a journey to be able to get what you're what you firmly believe and what I know makes sense in terms of the learning structure to shift. Because what's being recognized more and more, I think, also these days, is that everybody learns differently. So the current structure serves, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 20 or 30% of the students in terms of how they can respond and interact with that kind of learning. And there are so many diverse ways of the brain being wired and processing in children and in people, that there is a need for different approaches, and there is a need for maybe a more holistic and integrated way of learning that will be able to sweep along, hopefully 100, but at least more of a majority of the students into true learning and understanding. Because for those kids that it doesn't speak to or connect with, they end up either just memorizing, not understanding and just struggling, and then their self-confidence is really so damaged that it affects them for the rest of their lives, right? And then not only that, their own opportunities for their lives, they feel becomes much more limited because they don't believe that they have the skills to do things that interest them, or to succeed in an area that might interest them to make a living. Either they don't believe they have it, or they've been denied those skills by virtue of how they've been taught. So I'm so admiring of your initiatives that you're doing, and I wish I could see it, further around the globe take off, because I see it in my own children. It really resonates for me as a parent in seeing the struggles of my own children in the school systems, that I try to do as much as I can to help support, and I see that they struggle. And so we feel, some parents who see that in their children might feel at a loss for how to properly support or help their children develop, because there aren't that many options for, in certain areas. I hear for sure there are not many accessible options for us. um
So,
so
Talia, let me just, because this is something when I was listening to you, just came to my mind. So, what we have to understand, and maybe we have to remind ourselves continuously, that Pablo Picasso said a wonderful, I mean, he has shared a wonderful thought with the entire world, that each and every child is is a born genius, is a born
mhm,
artist. But the
absolutely
challenge is to remain an artist as he or she grows up.
true.
So when a child is born, the child is creative, the child is curious. So I have never seen a child in my life who is not enthusiastic to learn.
I
Okay?
agree, yes.
Neither have I seen a child who is not curious. So by default, each and every child is creative,
Yes.
is inquisitive, is extremely curious, and very, very enthusiastic. Problem is, where does this creativity, enthusiasm, curiosity go as they grow up? Is it their problem? No. It is a problem of parenting, it's a problem of tutoring, it's a problem of mentoring, it's a problem of teaching. It's the problem which is embedded in our entire system.
Yes.
Because you see, who are the ones who are operating in the system? The people, those who are operating in the system, they also have been honed and developed in a very, very different manner altogether,
Yes, I agree with you.
largely by unconscious parents. And see, I well meaning unconscious parents.
Yes.
I'm not blaming the parents, but I'm just trying to say that a lot of unconscious parenting is responsible for this. And why I say parenting, because the parents are the first educators that a child faces, right?
Yeah.
So your first education, your first ethics, your first values, you all have imbibed from your parents and from your immediate surroundings and from the early caregivers
Yes,
that you may
true.
be having, right? So it's so very important for the parents to understand that each and every word and each and every action that they display in front of the child is so very meaningful, because it's not, you see, Talia, if I tell my child something and the child picks it up, no, it's not as simple as that. The
Mm,
behavior that I display, the
yes,
kind of a response to a lot of situations maybe that my child is looking at me each and every point of time, and my
absolutely.
child is actually imbibing all those things. So as a parent, I have to be so very careful about what I'm putting out for them.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So how many parents are actually conscious about the fact? How many parents know that from 0 to 6 years, it's so vital for a child. I mean, during these time, during this particular span of years, a child's brain is in a very, very different state. As we say that the brain waves of a child during this particular stage is in a theta stage. And what's a theta stage? A theta stage is that kind of a stage where we as adults, through meditation or through
Mm,
yoga, we try to attain that particular state. And a child is automatically in that particular state. from
Right.
0 to 6 years. While that's a good news, the bad news is we parents are not aware of the fact.
Right.
During this particular time, anything that has been spoken to the child, you know,
Mm.
without thinking a lot. I mean, why I'm saying this to my
Mhm.
child, it can have a lifelong impact on the child.
Absolutely.
There's a kind of a subconscious downloading that happens during this time, and the child is not able to let it out of his or her system for the entire span of his or her lifetime. So, a parent who knows this, don't you think, would be more conscious about
Absolutely.
the words, the language, the behavior that a mother or a father will be displaying after knowing it? That, well, I mean, this can have so much of an impact on my child. We often think that during these years, I mean, it's just a child. It
Hmm.
will not be registering, but then that's so wrong, you see.
It registers
So
on a subconscious level, definitely.
on a subconscious level, and that's so important, because anything that levels on a subconscious level stays with you for a
Yes.
longer
Oh,
period of time. So it's important for the early years educators, parents, and the caregivers to know about this. The problem is, Talia, I often feel that might sound revolutionary again, but then I feel by virtue of our age, or by virtue of certain social uh, uh, mandates, we feel that now we are okay to get married and we can give birth to children, but
mm.
are we qualified to raise a child?
That's a whole
Is
that's a
there
whole other
any,
question.
I sometimes have these meaningful discussions, and discussions with my students. I mean, my students are all adult students who are about to become teachers after they complete their certification courses, or maybe they would be going into the field of research in the field of education, so they're adults. And often I have these kind of discussions with them, that there is perhaps, I mean, absolutely no qualification or certification to qualify you as a mother or as a father, but it should be, because it's in your
And
hands
it
that the
is.
future of your child is. I mean, it's so important. You are handling such a responsible and such a powerful role, and you
There's
are
no
not
question.
even aware of it. You're not
Yes.
even aware of it, what kind of damage you're causing
Yes.
your own children, you're subjecting your children to,
Oh,
just by
I
not being
agree.
aware of it.
I believe we're moving into an age where conscious parenting is becoming more of an awareness. And I think that awareness is absolutely crucial, when it comes to having a family. And I've experienced it. I mean, everything you've said, again, relates to the healing journey, right? Because so much of my work in my own personal world and with clients is examining where the roots of pain, suffering, dysfunctional behaviors and patterns are tied to. And ultimately, it very often comes back to events in childhood. And sometimes I've even discovered it's not even necessarily intentional events, but it's something that we as a child have taken in and internalized, even though there was no real intention to direct or create something negative. And I relate to what you've said because I've been on that same journey myself as an unconscious parent when I first had my children. And I was in a very tumultuous marriage, and I went through a very volatile divorce, and my own behavior was quite volatile. And my awakening and healing journey began about 6 or 7 years ago, when I started to be able to see the reflection of how I had been raising my children, or the atmosphere and the energy and behavior they'd been experiencing as they got older, by 6, 7, 8 years old. I started to see that reflected in them, and gave me pause and made me really have to question myself and my own behavior in front of them, who I am. It really sparked. It was part of the impetus for my own inner reflection and my own inner work to change and evolve my approach to life, my own behavior, how I feel about myself, so that I could model that for my children. And in relation as well to, in terms of the creativity, as you spoke about with children and where does it go, in the years where life was really very difficult, on a lot of levels with my kids when they were young. I got divorced but they were very young. So they went through that whole uh, journey with me, to seeing how once I've started to awaken and also take the pressure off them in terms of school, and take the pressure off myself in terms of, how I believe life needs to be structured and how I see things, I see a return to their creativity. I've seen both of my daughters. The younger one is incredibly creative. The older one, she's creative in her way. Um, but I've seen that begin to blossom and flourish again since I've been able to make those shifts, since the household has taken on a different atmosphere and structure, since the pressure has come off of all of us. The pressure has come off of me. I've been able to take the pressure off of them, and since I began to see education and what they're experiencing in the schools they're in here, I've been able to give them the reassurance of, you're there because this is what it is right now. I don't have really any other solutions for education at this moment. However, what your teachers are telling you, or the way they're making you feel about your accomplishments, we're just going to get you through it. I want you to learn how to do math, to write. I want those basics, and the rest I support at home. So we support the creativity, we support the tutoring in a different way that's more creative, or allows them the rhythm of learning that they need as well, instead of 3 hours straight in school, to give them that breathing room. And it's really amazing because everything you've said is so encapsulated. I've witnessed that shift myself, and I see my children more creative. I see them happier. I see us all healthier, emotionally. And it really is a testament to what you're saying about conscious parenting. It's kind of, it should go along with like all the Lamaze classes, like all the classes about childbirth. There should also be a contingent about conscious parenting, which there isn't, but
Absolutely, and in fact, when you decide to become a parent, I think it
mm,
should be like this. I mean, the day you decide that you are prepared to raise a child, I
mm,
mean, you should go for some kind of a training and
mhm,
come back
mhm.
with some kind of certification that now you're qualified to become a mother.
Right, right.
So, just by the virtue of
Mm,
your biology that you can give birth to a child
mm,
is not sufficient enough to qualify you as a mother in the true sense of the term, because it's a completely different journey altogether, because each and everything that you do has an impact on your child. And at the same time, Talia, let me just tell you that since you were just sharing your life's a slice of your life's journey with me,
mm.
your children can never be happy unless you are happy from within.
Absolutely. There's no question about that too. Absolutely. That's another
And
lesson on the journey.
this is the greatest gift that a mother can give to her
Absolutely.
children.
Yes. And
A
that's
happy, I
it's
mean, if I'm happy from within, if I'm fulfilled from within, my children will be so happy. Which
absolutely.
child would like to see his or her mother, you know, always complaining, always nagging, always in a very, very,
Yeah.
irritating mood? But then there are times when we can't help, but then, we are being watched each and every time.
Mm,
The way we respond, the things that trigger us, each and everything, the way we respond to a lot of emotions, each and everything is being watched by my son or
absolutely.
by my daughter. So it's not putting up a brave front, or it's not putting up a facade. No, it's not something like that. Be
No,
yourself. Be the most authentic
absolutely.
version of yourself. Involve them in your own journey of evolution and growth. Grow together.
Oh, yeah.
Make
Well,
them
that
feel
is,
that yes, yes, that's
I
so
believe
important.
in they do need to understand that life does bring its challenges and its trials, and they shouldn't be shielded from it entirely, because that's a
Exactly.
disservice as well. Then there aren't any coping skills for their own lives. But like you said, it's how we respond to it. And so, like you said, as I've been on my own journey and able to articulate it more, and my children are a bit older now, we do have discussions, and we have open discussions about what I may be experiencing to an age appropriate level, what they're going through, different ways to perceive it, to have the perspectives around it. So what you're describing, it's really, like I've said, I've been experiencing that firsthand. I will say I don't know if I would go as far as to say certification for parenting, but I do believe that more awareness is absolutely necessary. And at the end of the day, when my first daughter was very young, I was going for some therapy because I was having a very hard time with her behavior. My marriage was also, of course, impacting the state of my marriage. And I went to a wonderful child therapist, and he said to me, at the end of the day, there was a study he named about, they looked at the trajectories of children who had mothers who felt everything needed to be perfect and really were so highly organized, and they compared them with children whose mothers were maybe a little forgetful, not, house not perfect, things like that. And they found that the children whose mother was not at such a high level of perfect accomplishment and achievement in terms of mothering, they were the happier children. And he said there, it's the concept of the good enough mother. If your children know that they are loved, they are supported, and that their parents are there to support everything they do, sorry about that, um, then they gain also the right amount of perspective and proportional reaction to life that will help them lead them through. Whereas the children whose mother was the perfectionist and the highly organized and, running to do everything for them, those children actually suffered for a lack of being able to cope with life's ups and downs, because their expectations were so rigid for the smooth trajectory of everything in life, that it actually was a disservice to them. So that's something I've also tried to keep in mind, and remind friends and clients sometimes too, that we're not perfect. We just have to be human. We have to be mindful of our children, absolutely, and very aware of the impact we have on them. But at the same time, for our own maybe guilt, or the way that we do our best, we try to approach parenting, there is no perfection to be reached. There's us, we're human, we do our best, always with good intentions and compassion and kindness and devotion, and the rest hopefully works itself
Absolutely.
out.
Absolutely. Talia, I feel that this perfection myth,
Hmm.
you know, so,
Yes,
so this is, promoted and propagated by our society and culture. So this
absolutely.
has this has a very, very conscious agenda. Let us face it.
Mm,
So the patriarchal society has a very, very streamlined and a rigid agenda to put this perfection myth in each and every woman's mind. So there is a kind of an impossible standard which is set for each one of us, and our
yes.
entire life, whether as parents, or whether as mothers or wives or sisters or daughters, we try to attain those impossible standards all
Yes.
throughout our lives, not realizing that they're not meant to be achieved because
Yes.
they are impossible to achieve.
Yes.
Okay, and this is a kind of an agenda. It has
Yeah.
been set with a very, very um, you know, there is a kind of a greater political agenda behind this, set forth by the patriarchal society. And we need to understand, we need to acknowledge more to ourselves that, well, it's time when we need to celebrate our ordinariness. We need
Mm,
to celebrate our vulnerability,
yes.
our creative self, our most authentic self,
Yes.
that at a number of times in our lives we would reach out for help, and that's perfectly fine. So we are
Yes.
not running a race to be perfect. We are
Yes.
trying to be authentic. With each and every moment, with each and every passing day, if we can be a much, much better version of ourselves
Yes.
as human beings, I think our job is done, our work is done. And also, additionally, I would like to mention that whether as a woman or as a mother, well, you will fail a multiple number of times, and that's fine.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
fine.
That's the human
That's
part of
absolutely
us. Yes.
fine. You just try to be comfortable in your own skin.
That's
You
right.
know, you just be comfortable the way you are, because at the end of the day, you need nobody to tell you or to remind you of the fact that nobody can be better than you in
Mm,
being you.
that's true.
And I am extremely, Talia, I'm extremely inclined towards spirituality. I'm not a religious person, but I'm an extremely spiritual person.
Yes.
And you see, I believe in purpose. I
Yes. Oh,
believe in the fact that the very fact that I still exist on the face of this planet, it's because somebody up there wants me to exist, and not only
yes.
to exist, but to thrive. So
Yes.
I have a purpose.
Oh,
Whether I have been able to uncover that or not, or whether it's a matter of time or not,
mm,
that's a different question. But
yes.
he has made that purpose very clear in his mind when he has decided to create me,
Oh,
right?
yes. Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
I'm here to do something. I'm here to live up to those expectations, to those aspirations which he has set for me. I have no business to do any stuff or to do anything where I would bring disgrace to his dreams when
Mm,
he had dreamt of creating me. So I am very passionate about these kind of feelings.
yeah.
So there will be ups and downs in lives. That's fine. But then how you grow, how you evolve, how you pick yourself up each and every time after society has decided to, to throw you out of the system.
That's
So
right. To
that's
run you
your
over.
comeback. That's your
Yes.
comeback story. And when you have a comeback story, never ever be embarrassed or ashamed to share it with the world. Because you
Absolutely.
see, what's happening around us is that wrong kind of people are sharing wrong kinds of stories.
Mm,
When would the right kind of people come into the forum and speak and share their stories? It's high time
yes.
that the stories need to be shared and told.
Mm,
you know
oh, yeah.
this is very important. So I think, Talia, this in fact this your platform where
Mm,
you invite a lot of people to share their own life journey, this is also such a powerful platform, I
thank you.
believe.
Thank you so much. And I mean, every word you say, I resonate with so much because that is so representative of my own journey and where I've come to, even in when talking about in purpose and, understanding that you're here to be the authentic you. There were so many things. I was like, remember to say this and this to respond to you. I didn't want to interrupt you because really everything you said is so essential to understanding who you are, right? And as you said, the agenda that's put on women, it is what it does is, like you said, it sets standards that cannot be reached, but the effect on us makes us feel that we can't do anything, right? It just serves
Yes.
to push us down and make us feel like we're not good enough for any of it, when the opposite is true. We're actually quite incredible beings. I mean, men absolutely deserve their credit, but the female balance has been upended, and it needs to come back. The recognition of everything we are capable of and everything that we are innately able to bring to the world is so important. And that finding that purpose, um, we're given this gift of being mothers, nurturers, creators, and somewhere in there is a purpose, I feel. And it's not only tied to motherhood. We are absolutely individuals with our own talents that can, bring good to the world in entirely different ways, but it's an embodying and, I think, integrating that femininity within us that allows that creativity to come forth and that energy to come out. And you know like you said also about, um, it's important to share your story, that I've learned to not be ashamed to tell my story, and it was a long and difficult one, and to not be reluctant to acknowledge my own destructive behavior or damaging patterns, because out of them grew this awakening that has helped me shift, right? Without
Yes.
one, I wouldn't have been able to come to this point had I not awakened to it and begin to understand, wow, everything that's going on in my life is because of also how I'm taking things or how I'm reacting to things and managing things. So the first change and shift has to start with me. And so I'm jumping around a bit because I want to try to make sure to remember everything that to respond to everything that you said. I very much appreciate your kind words about this platform, because what I've discovered about myself and part of my purpose is to help give people a voice and
Mm-hmm.
help be that vessel to enable them to speak out. Um, and for me, stories. I was before this incarnation of myself, this iteration of me, I was a children's librarian for 20 years. And
Okay.
so my life was always about stories. I was an avid reader. I worked in libraries from the age of 14, and everything was about stories. And for me at the time, reading was an escape. It really
Mm-hmm.
was an emotional escape. What I've
Mm-hmm.
learned now, I've shifted reading into being something that nurtures my mind or my soul,
Mm-hmm.
instead of allowing me to escape and shut everything out and not cope with what I'm experiencing. And so as an editor, I really take joy in helping people shape their stories that they want to share
Mm-hmm.
with the world, so that the stories can be as resonant and as digestible and as emotionally connecting with their readers, so that message is successful, so it gets through to them. And as a life coach, every person has their life story. And so I really feel called to help guide through what I've learned in my experience and in my training, to help people reshape their own life story and the stories they tell themselves about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
help better their lives. So really, this conversation is so resonant for me, and I very much appreciate what you've said about that, because that really it's become my purpose to help people in the different ways that I have experience and passion for, uh, and sharing their stories. And that's really what our lives are, right? They're ongoing stories. Nothing is ever cut in stone. And that's, the end of the end of the book is just the end for us. And even then, I don't know if it's really entirely the end, but in terms of passing on. But I really believe that our stories are continually changing. We have multiple volumes, that we can
I
go
mean,
through.
we have multiple volumes, and at the same time, I would like to add that not only you are the writer, but you are also the editor of that particular story. So you have
Exactly.
that chance, and you only have that chance to
Exactly.
edit whenever you want to, because you are actually creating your life story. So
Yes.
our lives are organic, and the stories should also be in the same fashion. See,
Yes.
let me just bring this back again to education,
Mhm.
because I'm so very passionate
Absolutely. And it's
with
all
education.
it's all connected, right? And the way your
It's
your
all
approach to
connected.
education, it takes in the humanity, right?
Right. So
The
just as our
makeup of a
lives are,
person.
you see, as our lives are not linear and they are organic and they're created at each and every point. Each and
Yes.
every point you decide to do something, or you decide not to do something. Your story
Correct.
takes a different turn. Your life story takes a different turn. That's how education is also like. I mean, it's also the same with education. Then
Hmm.
how can we plan each and everything in the
That's right.
domain of education? Education is also not linear, it's organic. Problem that is happening right now in today's world, and that's happening globally, Talia,
Mm.
is that life is here and education is just here, you know.
Yes.
So everything that is happening on the real front is happening here. And education is just, captured in some theories and that are being delivered to the children, which are completely cut off with life. And that is the reason you have been saying also in today's discussion, that a lot of children, they're just not connected with what is happening in the schools, or within the
Absolutely.
classrooms. So it's not the child's fault.
No.
The fault is with the intention with which the content is being delivered to the child. First of all, the content is not related to real life.
Yes, that's true.
Secondly, you have assumed as a teacher that this particular content is something which will be relatable for each and every child in my class.
Mm,
That each and
yes,
every child
it's
will
different.
have the same thought patterns and will have the same receptive power. No,
That's
it
right.
can't be so. Each and every child is different.
That's true.
Each and every child is born with a unique blueprint.
Yes.
Is our education system catering to that uniqueness, to that diversity? See, human lives are actually diverse, but education is based on compliance.
Yes.
Education is based on conformity. So, the more you conform, the more you comply, the more successful you are in passing those standardized tests. But what is life, Talia? Life is so diverse. So
That's true.
life is here, education is here. So unless you are able to bring the two together, well, it's going to be miserable for our children and for our posterior. You see, so we all need to think about it that what we are doing or what we have been doing so long, it's actually a disservice that we have been
Yes.
doing to our children, and this cannot continue for long.
God willing, it won't. God willing, the changes will start to ripple through, and we'll be able to see that coming up, and in the next years to come, hopefully soon enough for our children who are currently in those systems. And you're at the forefront of all of this, so it's we're coming to the end of our session, and I think I'm happy to leave it on that note. I'm so grateful to you for everything you've shared today. I hope that maybe a day in the future we can have another conversation, because it feels like there's so much more to discuss. I want to ask you, so I create a list of book recommendations to tie things into the book world for me, and it's been really growing beautifully. So I'm going to be sharing the list shortly. It's available on bookshop.org. And I'd like to ask you to share your suggestion and recommendation to our audience of a book that would be interesting.
Sure. So, uh, since we have spoken a lot about education and conscious parenting today, I would definitely like to recommend Dr. Shefali Saberi's
Mm,
Radical Awakening
mm,
and Conscious Parenting. These are the two books which I would definitely like to recommend. Well, along with that, very recently I have also authored a book on educational principles, fundamental educational principles and management.
okay.
And at the same time, I have edited a book on education in post pandemic era, a paradigm shift. So
Okay.
both the books are available on Amazon right
Congratulations.
now.
Okay.
So I would also like to recommend those two books if
Absolutely.
there are people who are genuinely interested to know about the subject.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to have all of those titles in the show notes for people to look up and see if they're interested in reading them and learning from them. Congratulations on having published your titles.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you so
wonderful.
much.
And I thank you so much for being here. Please tell our audience where they can reach you or
Well,
find
Talia,
you.
I'm a person who is extremely active on social media. So, if there are anyone who are genuinely interested to get in touch with me, like minded people, to
Mhm.
discuss issues which are of interest to both one, I mean, both to that person as well as to myself. So, I would be so happy to get connected over social media. I'm very active on Facebook, Instagram, as well as LinkedIn. And also, additionally, anybody can actually write to me on my personal email,
Okay.
which is meetingdrmukherjee@gmail.com. MEETINGDRMUKHERJEE @gmail.com.
All of those links will be in the show notes so that you can find, I will have all of the ways to contact you as well in the show notes. So that will be shared. And when the episode is posted, we'll be able to link you in and share it widely with your audience and mine. I'm so
Perfect.
incredibly grateful. This has been a really beautiful conversation that has explored, it touches on the healing world that I live in, right? Live and work in, but it has added so much depth, and you've really added a beautiful element and aspect to the healing discussion, right? That really enhances the future. We're talking about children and education and how to allow them to grow into healthy and evolved human beings. So I really very much appreciate this conversation, and I'm again so admiring of all of your work, and I continue to follow what you're doing. So I thank you so much for today, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you so much, Talia. It had been a wonderful experience interacting and sharing so much with you. And yes, I'm so happy that I have been able to add value.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Same here.
Thank you.